Hello, Justin Keane here from BetterCo, Director at BetterCo. Welcome to my second edition of Chats with JK. In this episode, I have the absolute privilege to invite the legend that is Paul Meisner from Five Ways Accounting in Melbourne, Australia. How are you going, Paul?
Good, thank you very much. JK, is it now? God, look at that. We go back a long way. I am absolutely looking forward to this. We've been threatening to do this for each other for a while.
Yeah, we have. And just on that, I suppose we met at Zero Cons in the past, probably about 12 years ago. Would that be about right?
Were you at Taupo? Were you at the first one?
No, I was not at Taupo.
Oh, there you
Next
go.
one after that, yeah.
There you go. And actually, I think I was thinking about it this morning. You were my first ever accountant that I shared a client with internationally.
Oh, wow, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think I flew on the way. I saw you. I caught up in your office. I was either on the way to the Zero office or on the way. Anyway, no. And I think that's one of the things that the power of the cloud accounting has done is given us the ability to learn off not just our nearest neighbour, but those across the ditch.
Oh, and look, it's that abundance mentality, isn't it? We're not competing against each other. We're in the same space. And I suppose back in the beginning, we were, the OGs in the cloud accounting, online accounting space. You've called yourself on your website the Zero Guru, mate. So, we were sort of one of the founding firms really to embrace the technology as it was way back when,
And I think that's the interesting thing. And also, I don't know about you, but I've used it every day, and I still use it for all my clients. But I'm in there every day. I speak to a lot of sort of partners that I've got staff for that. I actually jump into all the files, mate. I still get in with the debits and credits. You can't get me out of the old debits and credits, mate. That's where I live.
I love it. And look, the topic of today is a topic that's pretty close to both of our hearts, I feel. And look, it's the term advisory in accounting. And look, it gets bandied around a lot. It winds me up a bit, to be honest. What's your first take on advisory in accounting?
Look, I think that the term really has just been co-opted into a marketing slogan, I think. At the basis of it, it's anything that gives the client advice.
Yes.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be a cash flow, a three-way cash flow. It doesn't have to be a business plan. It doesn't have to be goals and yoga retreats and all whatever else. And I tell you what, it certainly isn't. It isn't just having to buy extra software, because that's just, that's just silly. So I think that's what we don't do well as an industry, is actually define it. And I think because it's too wide. There's certainly, I broke down the compliance job into many, many segments. And what's interesting, and I have the term compliance advisory is sort of what I go with. Yes. And it's that last 10% of the job that adds all the value, but actually isn't the data entry. It's the advice. It's the, how can we do it better? Yes. How can we minimize tax? How can we do that? So I think, and anyone who's run a small firm knows that their clients call them about anything, about medical relationships. Yes. We get invited to dinners, we get invited to footy, we get invited to all sorts of things. And I think people, particularly those who are trying to sell us stuff, don't really understand that deep personal relationship with clients, because they don't see it in software. Yeah. Software is very transactional, but small accounting and small compliance accounting isn't.
Oh, totally. I totally get it. We're counsellors half the time, and is that advisory? Yeah, probably. But I suppose the clear difference for me is the difference between compliance and advisory. So for us, compliance is everything that you deal with the IRD or the ATO in Australia. So it's the year-end financial statements, it's the tax returns, it's probably the BAS returns and the GST. All of those things fit really nicely into compliance. And a lot of it, what we talk about, is the past. So you're reporting to the past, so you've just come to the end of your financial year. Happy New Year, mate. But
Thank you.
yeah, but so everything that we do at the end of a financial year for our clients, that comes across to me as compliance. Would you agree with that?
I think certainly. I mean, and again, like I don't have a problem with compliance. I've been 100% realistically. Let's call it 99% compliance. I find, ironically, there's a certain. Well, in fact, I think it's most of those analytical software. Do you know how they give you the future position? Wait for it. They look back. So all of their content, right? They'll never look back. Don't look back. Well, their algorithm actually is trained on past data. It's like, my God. Like, without actual data in the right spot, they can't do their job either. And I think for me, there's an untapped resource. I am not in any way anti-advisory. I'm not in any way anti. I mean, how long have we been as accountants dealing with the word proactive, right? I think for me that in looking back and dealing with accounting. And I think that the value for compliance for me is it's not transferring data, it's transferring anxiety. I had a client who once said to me, it's like, you stand between me and the tax office so that I can sleep, right? Or I can get on with it. If they call me, they call you, or I call you, or you just handle it. And I think
it's that piece of
there's a lot of value, there's a lot of value and also making sure they're not paying too much. That's the thing, is like, I don't know that I just want to know that I'm compliant, but I want to know that I'm getting the sort of the best deal from the tax office.
Yeah, so if they're paying the right amount of tax and they're not, floating too close to the line that they're going to go to jail either,
And look, I think embedded in looking back and dealing with last year is inevitably conversations around a learning aspect, an advisory aspect of what could I do next year, or next time I have this question, what do I do? I think there's advisory. It doesn't have to be a boardroom meeting or a yoga retreat or a
you keep mentioning this yoga retreat, mate. When are you going to invite me? Come on.
I've never been on one. I'm at a golf trip, a golf round. But and certainly not a 700-page graph report that nobody will ever read. But there is that point, and I think anyone who's run small firms knows just how many times our clients call us and say, "Well, I'm looking to buy a car, I'm looking to refinance this, I'm looking to do this," And I think there is inherently in that compliance relationship, there is so much of that ad hoc advice. Do I think accountants bill for it properly? Absolutely not. And that's the low-hanging fruit for firms, rather than trying to tack on whatever the hell, business performance reporting or three-way cash flow or goals or how they feel.
Yes, yeah. No, and look, I'm going to touch on, we call it, and you've just mentioned it then, the performance reporting, but we call it Compliance Plus. We don't call it advisory. So that's the regular reporting and the regular catch-ups that we do have with our clients. And that can be monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly reporting. And alongside that, and we include it in our Compliance Plus is tax planning and management, which is important, making sure you're paying the right amount of tax at the right time. So we include that. And then a bigger area for us at the minute, the third part is the outsourced finance piece. But I call that advisory as well, because you're advising on our clients' back office. So it's their bookkeeping effectively and the systems and processes that they're using in-house. So I'd call that advisory as well. So I think as far as compliance and Compliance Plus, it includes those things. And the things, and I'll question you on where I'm going with this, but for advisory for me, it's the half-day business planning session, it's organisational reviews, it's like one-on-one coaching intensively. I'd call that advisory. So what's your take on the Compliance Plus and that type of advisory work?
I've really struggled to add that element. I've struggled to need to.
Yeah.
And I think I want to talk about client mix in a minute because I think that's an important part of the discussion. Yes. I've always run a particularly small firm.
Yes. How about your firm now, Paul?
I've got myself, And up until yesterday, it was one in the Philippines, and now it's two in the Philippines.
Yes.
So they're very small. But often, I mean, that's like a lot of firms, right? Sole practitioners. And I think 13 years ago, or 14 years ago, when I started my firm, I did, in a way, revolutionize the way services were priced with fixed fee. And also I charge all of my clients an amount, quite a decent amount, sort of $1.5 to $2.5 grand a year for what I call unlimited tax advice. Now that's all the death by 1,000 cuts kind of phone calls. I'm refinancing. Where's my ATO debt? But it's interesting, like it's conversations I'm going to have anyway during the year, but it doesn't chew into I'm earning money for that. You've got 100 clients paying $1.5 grand, 150 grand, that is on my bottom line for doing exactly the same number of phone calls. Now,
you're doing that well. A lot of small accounting firms would not be doing that.
Mate, I've spent 13 years trying to tell people, you don't need to sell 25 half-day workshops. Just tell every one of your clients who calls you every other week that they need to start paying for it, mate. And accounting would be solved, mate. Accounting would be solved. But look, I just want to talk about the client mix because of that pricing structure, and the fact I really do like tax compliance, which probably is I'm in the minority.
You're a sad team.
But because of that, I don't need to. 96% of clients turn over less than 2 mil, right? And I think if you looked at your clients in the Compliance Plus, and from what I don't know your client mix, but from the people I speak about, we talk a lot about these accounting services, but what we fail to recognise is often it's in that north of $2 million turnover type business, which in Australia is 4% of businesses. But when you take out the 1% that are listed companies that you can't touch anyway, but you've also got all of the big firms fighting for it. You've got big firms, you've got mid-tier, all of those are trying to, chew at the scraps of this so-called sexy work, mate. And then there's another 4 million small businesses in Australia with associated entities that just need the tax office to get off their ass. Mate, there's money there if you can do it properly. And I think it's again not that advisory has anything wrong with it. It's that I think it's a really packed market. It's really hard to do at scale. And if you kind of otherwise don't need to do it, it's certainly not going anywhere. If anything, it's getting harder.
Yeah, and it's a good point when you talk about scale. And that's why we've gone down the road of, the end of year financial statements and tax return, do that as efficiently as you possibly can. Use all of the systems and processes to get that turned around as quickly as you can, because as I said, that is the past. And then as far as scaling as we call it, the Compliance Plus, the performance reporting, the tax planning and management, especially those two, our team can do that. And even if you use the outsourced teams can actually do that to a certain point. So that's pretty scalable. It's when you have
isn't management reports inherently still just looking back? You're just looking back at last month, not last year.
Yeah, totally. It is.
Back, mate.
Yeah, it is. no, totally. And that's why it's still Compliance Plus, and that's why we call it Compliance Plus. But I suppose the only other thing is that we do forecasting going out a year or two, depending on the size of the client. So you're trying to hit those targets on your budget, which is entered into Xero. It's all pretty basic. You don't need all of the software under the sun to actually report that. And that works pretty well. But I suppose my point is, as far as scaling goes, for me, I've done half-day business planning sessions, I've done org reviews, and I've got the experience to deliver those, where our accounting team just don't have the experience to actually deliver and have the respect of those clients that are paying quite good money for it, to be a part of that. So what we've learned is that, yes, the performance reporting and the tax management and planning, the team can actually deliver and prepare that stuff to give to our client base. So that is definitely scalable. I think the other areas of advisory that I've mentioned just are not, because you're going to have to employ people that just have the experience and the nous to deliver those. So we've come to the point, I don't want to be doing planning sessions, 3 or 4 planning sessions a week, I'll just be wrecked, and I don't have interest in that. So yes, we do them as and when required, but they are few and far between now, and we're focusing our energies on those areas that can scale.
What size clients take on that service compared to just an annual set of accounts, tax return and BAS?
Yeah, good question. So we say from sort of a $500,000 turnover through to 2, but yep. So it's in that little space there, so it's not too complex, but there's enough there that they get value out of that regular reporting. The bigger clients might have more monthly and 2 monthly meetings rather than quarterly. But even the companies that have lesser turnover than that, if there's an appetite for it and that's what they want, then we can provide that service to them. So that works pretty well.
I think it's really interesting. I mean, it's something I've thought about, and again, over the 13 years, I've been very, very patiently, as you know, I'm a patient man, waiting for all of this automation to finally put me out of a job and save me all this time. The fact that I'm still manually entering bank transfers in certain blue-coloured software that can't automatically recognise its own bank transfers, or BAS payments or payroll payments. I think the fact that we're still waiting on that means that I have missed out somewhat, Justin, on this nirvana that's apparently been going to save all my time so that I can do this so-called advisory.
Look, I think our jobs are safe for the foreseeable future, Paul. Let's be honest there. But it's a great segue, though, mate, because I've got a question here as well. Where does the future lie with tech and software for you for the future of the profession? And does that include AI? Are you using AI? What are your thoughts around this space?
I mean, the absolute noise and drivel coming out of the software space is it's just insane. I mean, I guess it just shows just a basic lack of understanding of what we do or what the mix is. But I know it's sexy. I know that, mass hysteria and robot armies and everyone being out of a job, will be the norm. But we just consistently face it. I think that the thing that's always struck me about accounting is, because, especially those of us in tax accounting, we deal with some of the fastest paced change in any industry. Medicine doesn't change as much as tax law. So I think saying that accountants aren't sort of nimble to change, I think is a bit rich. We've seen it. We've had bank feeds. We've had online banking for 25 years. We've had bank feeds for nearly 18, 19 years. You and I have been using cloud accounting software every day that was going to kill us. Bank feeds was going to kill us. The computer was going to kill us. GST was going to kill us. I lose track. Now, are there some really interesting things about ChatGPT? Absolutely. I've used it to reformat Excel, learn some formulas, do some data crunching. But you still got to have someone behind it. My biggest fear for the industry, and historically, has been how badly we've talked about the replacement of accountants, because I think, we're seeing the staff shortages, and we always have, because of the narrative that our accounting bodies, don't get me started on that, have let fester, that just has never eventuated. But the other real danger is, we don't, with all this noise about the fear of something, we really lose the ability to open our minds and let it help us. Yeah. I think if you there were lots of old sort of older generation accountants who really didn't embrace cloud accounting as we were coming through to do it, just because of that fear narrative. And I think you and I looked at it as an opportunity. And did it fundamentally change our jobs? No. It made it. There was a lot of opportunity. So I think that the fear, although it is needed to sell whatever, colour something selling at this current time, they always move around. I lose track. They seem to be selling something all the time. But it clouds the industry and stops us actually getting the most out of it. And there's some great opportunity there.
Yeah, and look, I agree. I think with anything that's new, shiny, and bright, I think you've got to have some curiosity. You really do, and you've got to sort of, you look at ChatGPT, we're looking at some technology now that transcribes all of our online meetings. I don't have anything running on this one, mate. Don't worry. But some of the technology that is there, and it makes our lives and our team's lives more efficient. I think you need to definitely look at, and you need to be curious. But yeah. Will it overrun the accounting industry? Look, we're still a relationship business. I enjoy having conversations with my client, going out to their premise and visiting them to see how they're getting on. That's not going to change. That's just the way I am, So I think, that will never change. But I think my point is that to still be curious and just sort of see what's out there. But as you've alluded to, we get it driven down our throats a little bit. You've got to have it. It's a must-have where that's just not necessarily the case.
And look, there's some great opportunity, and I think if the fear could die down for a bit, people could, or the salespeople got out of the way and the real people. I'd love to see some real examples on how it's being used, other than to write an email, But anyway, I think the other thing I want to mention on this AI stuff, which I think's been something that I've kept a close eye on throughout the journey, is what I call the real massive implementation gap. Yeah. The technology is brilliant, but the people and the systems that implement it are severely lacking. I mean, in my history is with Xero, but overall, no matter what color the software is, it's included. We've had AI in cloud accounting software for 10 years. People are thinking this is new. Yes, parts of it are new. Yes, absolutely. But how has it been implemented so far? And you'd say, give me a break. The software's getting harder. The bank recs got less intuitive. Yeah. We're supposed to be. It's. So I think people sit at the front of a wave, and they kind of go, oh, that's going to do some. It's going to take it. There is so many people who are going to balls it up on the way through the implementation. And because they don't understand what we fundamentally do. Yeah, correct. And they're not looking at it through the lens of opportunity. They're looking at through the lens of fear-based fear-based marketing or change. And I think that's probably one of the massive disappointments and one of the real reasons that it doesn't get implemented. Accountants get blamed an awful lot for not implementing software. I tell you what, New Zealand are a brilliant case. I think America and UK have different challenges, not just cricket and bank checks. But
didn't take long for you to bring the cricket.
Yeah, I know. But New Zealand and and Australia. Look, I don't know about New Zealand, but Australia. Just our accounting firms will implement software quick. They do. And nick it off really quick, right? So. The fact that software tries to put this at the feet of accountants who aren't, who are reticent to change is just baloney. Seriously, go back and sip a latte and try to work out whether your software can do anything.
And that's a really good point you make. We've got to pat ourselves on the backs as small accounting firms that have led the charge for over a long period of time now, so, and you're right, we're the first to try something and fail fast, if you like. We'll try a system, if it doesn't work, get out, so I think we're at the forefront. And I think as the younger generations come through and start to run their own accounting firms, then they'll be even stronger in that regard.
But I don't think they're coming through, and I think that's the greatest mismanagement of the industry.
Maybe they're looking to work for those software companies, mate. Maybe they're looking to work for them rather than become accountants. Is accounting not sexy enough?
Mate, I tell you, the accounting bodies are certainly doing a decent job at ballsy. Apparently, they've all become coaches, although there's very few coaches that actually hold any qualification. They're already brains, I think. But anyway.
No.
What is it? If you can do, you do, and if you can't, teach.
Yeah. No, totally.
Or coach.
No. Oh, exactly. So I think, look, we'll sum up now if we can, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, mate. It always is. But I think, just in summary, I think advisory definition of, it depends on who you are and what walk of life you come from, but advisory can take different forms depending on where you sit on the spectrum, I suppose, and where your services lie as an accounting firm. So I suppose choose your advisory and choose it wisely.
I think also it's do the services you want to do. Do the services. There's a Japanese concept of ikigai, which I've followed for many years, is do what you want, do what you're good at, do what the world needs, and I replace that with what can make money.
Yeah.
And I think that we often as accountants just take on too much. I think this top line growth focus is a real worry in our industry, because we are selling relationships, and while we're not doing timesheets, we are selling time. That scalability of that relationship side of our job is really hard, and that's a big part of it. I think we need to focus on, look, and we have done it since my dad was an accountant and I watched from the couch on school holidays. We go where our clients lead us.
Yes.
If our clients en masse started saying, we want you in our office to do a strategy session, then we do it. Like, we're not, we're smart people, right? And if they could pay for it, like, they'd all want it. What they want and what they pay for, I find in that micro segment is vastly different.
Yeah, totally. Look, I think we've covered a lot off there, mate. I really appreciate your time. I know your time is very precious, but I think, look, our jobs aren't going anywhere, are they, mate?
Government are the biggest risk, and I don't know about you. Yours sort of seems to be falling apart. Ours has been falling apart for many years, and they can't agree on which scandal to push under the rug. I don't know how they're gonna do a root and branch reform of tax law. So maybe we're safe. Let's keep the politicians busy.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to go into politics on this call. That's for sure. No, but you're right.
I think they hold the governments, in terms of making tax law more simple, which they aren't. It's going in the opposite direction. But they're the ones that, if there was any major risk, they could get rid of it tomorrow, and they could do a whole lot of things. But it certainly won't be tech. It's there to help us rather than hurt us.
Yeah, no, that's it. Hey, appreciate your time, Paul. I think we're just about done. We'll do this again. I enjoyed it.
Anytime, mate. Anytime. Hit me up on socials, anyone. I'm really nice in real life. I am nice in real life. Justin knows that. He'll vouch for me sometimes. 100%. You knew me when I had black hair, mate.
Yeah, sure, I'm doing all right. In comparison, I might be losing a little bit, but that's all right.
It's gone white, I tell you. All good, mate.
All right. Well,
thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. See ya.